Thank you for auditing the always positive new music review show hosted by a French professor who's in the middle of a redo of his recording studio, also known as his living room, so please forgive the mess behind me. I'm going to be reviewing, I think we could say finally, an album by Mitski. The land is inhospitable and so are we. And what I want to do is I want to break this into two different listens. So this was my first time ever listening to Mitski. Well, that's not true. I listened to Laurel Hell when it came out a couple years ago, and somehow I determined that I didn't have anything to say about it. I didn't want to review it. My daughter has been bothering me for the last 2 years since I decided, because she's certain that I would like her music, and of course, GOAT is often correct. But there's these two listens, where one is the first time I've ever very carefully listened to Mitski's music, okay? Totally new, knew nothing about her, not a single thing. And then the second listen, which is the second, third, fourth, fifth listen, where I've looked up her biography, I've looked up her lyrics, I've watched videos with her, and then on my channel, I asked the community, hey, what do you think of Mitski? What does she make you feel? So that's the way I want to kind of divide up this whole review, like a total neophyte, and then someone who's a little more experienced fight. Oldophyte? What's the opposite of neophyte? Tell me in the comments if you know the answer. So on my first listen, something came to mind, and it was a very powerful memory. I'm going to go on a little personal story here. If you're the kind of person who just wants grades and numbers in reviews, some kind of pretension to objectivity, I'm not your guy, so just check it out. There's other great ones. I give this album a 37, and if I had to give it a letter grade, I would give it an R. Okay? So you have those now. You can just go away. But I want to tell a story. It's about me and my best friend in college. Now, I'm going to protect his name because we're not friends anymore. Kind of a sad story. But we were very, very close. And we both had fairly effeminate names that were male names and effeminate. Skye, I'm often confused as a woman. And let's just call him Lindsay. Okay, a similar kind of name like that. We were very close. And like many great male friendships, it was vaguely homoerotic at times, just to be honest. We were sort of going in between, like we were in our early 20s, and this was a lot before questions of gender expression and gender roles were really being questioned in mass media. And really, we were like these weird fake cowboys. Like, I'm saying that and you're going to laugh at me, but like I bought a cowboy hat and I wore a cowboy hat. I had a duster, like full on, It's Always Sunny in Philadelphia duster. I'm telling you kids, if you're in your early 20s and you think you haven't figured it out, it's okay. No one has it figured out. We would like change the oil in my F-150 Lightning. We sort of had this kind of like rugged desire to be like that. But at the same time, we considered ourselves feminists. We cared for our girlfriends at the time very much. And we were always sort of like looking for sort of like female voices. And this was especially true in music. Like we wanted this thing that we didn't know if it existed. I talk a lot on this channel how when I was in high school, I was a misogynist, right? Just my ears were misogynist. Through society, I basically discounted women's expression as being unimportant. I never would have said that out loud, but it was so ingrained in me that I unquestioningly propagated this belief. Okay? So when I got to college, this started to change. That's where I started to get into Madonna, started to get into Bjork, started to get into other musicians, Lauryn Hill, and there's this great singer-songwriter from Boston, Ramona Silver. Great album, if you've never heard it. Ramona Silver, look her up, she's great. But still, we had this feeling like we love music, but there's like this hole. But the issue was, what we wanted was a very specific thing, and I'm going somewhere because the specific thing we were looking for is what Mitski is. But we were looking for singer-songwriters who were great, but not in what was at the time the Lilith Fair lane. Your Annie's DeFranco, your Sarah's McLachlan, your Jones Osborne. There was a certain kind of female singer-songwriter, kind of folky, which didn't scratch that itch for us. Now, maybe it's because it was made with more of a female audience in mind. Maybe the messaging was too on point. Maybe we just didn't like it. But what we ended up finding is that there were singers, two in particular, who were in the sort of country-ish mode, who managed to use some of the trappings of country music, some of the great songwriting instincts, some of the great instrumentation, like the great country music. I'm not talking, Broco here. This isn't Florida Country Line or whatever. I'm talking about, Willie Nelson and Hank Williams and Patsy Cline, sort of that era of country. And like they were doing it. So I think in particular Lucinda Williams, Lindsay and I would just get together and listen to Lindsay Williams while wearing a cowboy hat and changing the oil on my car. So stupid. Yes, there are photos of me wearing a cowboy hat in my super truck in my early 20s. I will share those if I ever get to 75,000 subscribers. Smash the like bucket. And of course, Nico Case and everything Nico Case was doing. We had this sort of feeling that like, wow, there was this lane. And so I stopped paying attention to new music right around that time. So I wasn't really paying attention. And what's great is since I started this channel, there's so many female artists in this lane making music that is a sort of, that is feminine and feminist, but is not, that's not the point of the music. That is just sort of a part of the music. It is sort of a sort of non-masculine, if I could use that term, at least in terms of sort of domination and aggression as being one of the primary goals of a lot of music I used to listen to as a kid and in high school. You can't have a lyric like, "We are your overlords," and not think that's what a lot of classic rock was about. And that there's just a lot of this great music out there. So Lindsay, if you're out there watching, maybe that, there's a chance. There's a chance that he's into Mitski and he's looking around on YouTube. Hit me up. I still love you. I do. I still love you deeply, even though we hurt each other. So anyways, maybe we can be friends again. Although you never liked it when I pointed out the homoerotic nature of our friendship. What are you going to do? I'm sure we've both grown. So that was my first listen, On my first listen, I had all these feelings, and I wanted to time travel back in time and see Lindsay and see Skye and say, hey, check, this is coming down the pike. Someone who's about to be born is going to make this music. And when you're in your 40s, you're going to see that there's more music like this than you can possibly imagine. Now, I didn't even know when listening that she was Asian or Asian American, or I can't, I haven't done that much research, but that she's an Asian American of at least half Japanese descent. I had no idea. That doesn't come through in the music. I couldn't figure out where she was from, but I knew she was not from New York or LA. There's something about her music that doesn't feel that way. Now, I love St. Vincent. I love Lana Del Rey, right? Musicians who are perhaps more popular in roughly a similar lane, although different styles. But like maybe it's just the influence of Harry Nilsson, which when you move to LA becomes completely capital. This album feels like, even though it's an album, like the singer-songwriter album that's a lot about self-loathing and regret, that somehow doesn't feel like a Nilsson album, that's pretty spectacular. It turns out that she's from Nashville, which makes sense because Nashville is the place where great country music is made. It's also the place where bad country music is made. It's the place where music is made. To look down on Nashville is like looking down on New York. It's like, yeah, there's things to look down on. There's also great things. So then I went to my second listen. I asked YouTube, hey, what do you think? I'm just going to quote some of the, 50 people who commented. Peanut Buddha says that being an Asian American, Mitski has a lot to say about being biracial in the indie scene and in America. Great. That's interesting. J-Rod says she was a critical darling at first, especially with Pitchfork, but since her songs blew up on TikTok, it's led to a negative relationship between her and her fans. Tell me about that, okay? Tell me in the comments more about that. Not just J-Rod, anybody. Like tell me what was the blow up on TikTok? Is that why my daughter knows Mitski? I haven't asked her. Like, is that how she would have heard of it? I mean, my daughter's pretty hardcore with finding good music, so I doubt that. But has there been a Steve Lacy moment for Mitski? Austin Bartola does my job for me. I don't know if Austin Bartola is a music cricket like me, but I consider her one of the most important forerunners of representations of wave of female singer-songwriters that emerged in the mid-2010s, known for their extremely vulnerable, distinctly feminist, 90s-influenced indie rock. Her first albums that broke out the indie scene in 14 and 16 had more of a lo-fi slacker rock aesthetic, and since then she's gone more in art pop and new wavy directions. Hey. I mean, that was like, hey, that's all the research I need to do. Shrugs Elliott, one of my favorite names, says, extremely creative and beautiful art. Don't listen as often as I should because it really makes me feel. And this is funny because if the person's name is Shrugs Elliott, shrugging is like one of the worst things you can do, like just not caring. So the fact that this music makes Shrugs Elliott forced to interact with their emotions shows the power of Mitski, which of course came through. To that end, Lululemon Bars had accurately describes emotions. Engaging Athena calls her an absolute angel. North is just happy to hear my takes. Jods was very specific and said, great to listen to whilst sitting in the shower with the lights off. I basically shower in the dark, so that works for me. Ethan Lamar had a non sequitur and asked me to review Gang of Youth. I don't know. It's the first time I've ever been asked that question. And then a lot of people talked about how apparently Mitski is the daughter of a CIA agent. I'd like to say something. CIA agents have children too. So, you know, my dad was recruited to be a part of the CIA. He didn't go, but they approached him. So what? You shouldn't listen to me because I was almost the son of a CIA agent. I don't know. It's a bunch of kind of silly, like, gotcha, whatever. It doesn't really matter. So there we go. I mean, with all those thoughts in mind, I listened to the album. Not that much changed, really. First listen to second listen to third listen to fourth listen, except her voice. The thing about it is that her voice is so good, but it's not like there's those moments where you go, oh, listen to that pure skill. It really is more taste. It really is a lot of restraint. It's always hitting the right notes, but she never feels like she's showing off. I think the same thing goes for the songwriting. Even the same thing goes for the lyrics, although the lyrics are at times just stupidly good. I mean, the title itself, Land is Inhospitable and So Are We. I think in the context of the album, that's probably referring to her being inhospitable to her partners. Because she has sort of an un-Taylor presence. A lot of Taylor Swift's music is about the bad guy, the jerk who left her. And even the Olivia Rodrigo album, very similar. Like, how can you treat me like this? How can you be so toxic? How can you be so poison? This is sort of the other side of that, where she's the wrong one, she's the toxic one, she's the poison one, she's the hurt person who hurts people, right? That kind of keen self-awareness pops up and is present throughout without it ever really glorifying it. I was talking about Nilsson, and Nilsson makes being a jerk and irresponsible, selfish prick kind of sexy and cool. This really feels like real regret. The whole thing is co-produced by Patrick Hyland. I'm sorry. I must have meant Jack Antonoff. Let me just clear my eyes. Let me just put on my glasses. Because it's illegal to be a female singer-songwriter and not make an album with Jack Antonoff. No. It says Patrick Hyland. So props to the world to allowing anybody else to produce a great female singer-songwriter. I'm being facetious. I looked it up, and it turns out Patrick Hyland has worked with Mitski the entire way through, and that's great. I love it when there's these great collaborations. In my Olivia Rodrigo video, I talked a lot about the concept of Barbie pop, which is sort of what I call her style. Watch that video if you haven't seen it. And one of the big parts of it is heavy male involvement that doesn't take away from the artistry, right? That doesn't ever overshadow. Like male allies as opposed to male Pygmalions or male usurpers, or, you know what I mean? There seems to be a much healthier relationship between strong female performers and male producers or songwriters or whatever. And I think that's seen across the board with Phineas and Antonoff and Daniel Nigro and apparently Patrick Hyland. So I'm going to start talking about the album now, 13 minutes in. Feel free to smash the like bucket. If you want to say something but you don't know what to say, there's a little secret code for all my auditors, all my viewers. AVAA means awesome video as always. I will always give a heart to anyone who says AVAA, even if they hide it somewhere in their comment. This is my mug. You can buy my mug if you want. It's kind of a cool mug. I don't do sponsorships because I don't think you need a VPN. I don't think you need it. And I don't shave. So I don't need a Dollar Shave Club I do not need to manscape. You know what I'm saying? We're all good. You're all set. And the most important anti-commercial I can give you, if someone is telling you that their product helps the world or is going to be used in a charity, don't believe it. It's tax write-offs and it's minimal. Just don't buy it. Don't ever feel good for buying something. Okay? All right. So the stamp of the album, click above the creeping darkness of light that is behind me, the extreme void of Andy Warhol's Banana behind me here on this Sunday morning. with a track which might not be my favorite track on the album, but is my favorite title. And when I think about my youth, this is exactly how I felt. I don't like my mind. Ah, perfect. Perfect. I actually still feel this way a lot. I am quite often at war with my mind. You know, like when you feel something, and then you think something, and you know that what you're thinking is just based on some feeling that you don't believe in, but your mind just keeps going, and you're just at war. And that's the thing. Like, she leads off with this title, and we're forced to think about it. And this is what I like about this song, which I think is representative of the kind of strength to this entire album. On the one hand, it reminds me very strongly of the early songwriting of the previously mentioned Willie Nelson. Not Harry Nilsson, Willie Nelson. Do yourself a favor, if you have not listened to the first 5 years of output from Willie Nelson, have a listen. I mean, his stuff now is fine and great, and he smokes a lot of weed, and he has dumb hair. Like, I get it. That's what everyone thinks about Willie Nelson. But his early songwriting and his voice when he was young, if it is not the greatest voice in the history of popular music, it is in the top 3. That is how good early Willie Nelson is. Yes, it is Aretha Franklin-esque. I just pissed you off. But if you listen to the song Undo the Right and tell me that's not some of the best singing you've ever heard. But what a lot of early Willie Nelson stuff would do is he would really just have this sort of songwriting template. And of course, I got into Willie Nelson in my cowboy phase. My second cowboy. I've gone through 2 cowboy phases in my life. I'm not proud, but I am honest. So he divides up the whole world into heart, brain, and guts, basically. But it's really the fight between the heart and the brain. He sort of divides things up, and he has this very playful way of thinking and talking about the world. And in particular, he has a song called Hello Walls, in which he's speaking to his walls about the pain that he feels that he's left alone. And what I like about it is this song, because this song, it leads with this title, and it's got very country instrumentation. It has these drums in the other room, a little piano, but really this is just the voice, words. And she's not even rhyming, she's just going. Just going. That you really are put in this room with her, where she does not like her mind. She is at war with her mind. So it gives me those great, strong Willie Nelson vibes. And then just for fun, because if you don't know, whenever I can, I try and bring up 17th century French philosopher, moralist Pascal, in his book Pensées, which was put together after his death. Once you get over his many terrible passages that are horribly anti-Semitic and totally unforgivable, which I frankly don't know why they keep publishing them, just take them out. He has an amazing insight into humanity. And he was the person who said, I found a translation into English of one of his quotes, it's found in this book, all the unhappiness of men arises from one single fact. They cannot stay quietly in their own room. So, he means this largely in a Christian mindset, that if we are alone in our own room, then we realize that we're eventually going to die, and if we're eventually going to die, we're quite likely going to go to hell and spend eternity. So we have to divert ourselves. Up until recently, there was no French word for fun. There's only divertissement, which means diversion. That's what fun is. Fun is taking yourself away from your own mortality and from your own need to go to hell, your own eventual arrival to go to hell. Here, with Mitski, it's a little bit different. It's like her hell is being in her room, being left alone, and having to have her mind think about all the things that she's done. So it really is a beautiful mixture, and I don't think it's intentional. I'm just saying sort of spiritually, why does it resonate with me? It is a kind of Pascal-Willie, sort of a Willie-Pascal mélange in terms of its general perspective. I don't like my mind. I don't like being left alone in a room with all its opinions about the things that I've done. That's that Willie Nelson thing of feeling like you don't have agency over your own organs. So yeah, I blast music loud and I work myself to the bone. So this is it. This is diversions, right? That's what Pascal explains, that everything that we do is to not be alone with our mind. because your mind has opinions on what it's done, or your mind has opinions on where you're going to go after you die, or your mind has opinions, if you're going to the existentialists, mid-20th century, that you are going to die. We don't like our mind. You're watching this video, and frankly, you should just turn it off and just sit alone in a room and just think. Just sit there. Do you know how long I can sit alone in a room and think with no input whatsoever? None. Not even a single second. I go to bed listening to headphones. I listen to podcasts. That's how I go to sleep. Because if I don't, then I start thinking about death. So, it's fascinating. And here it's a question of regret. Then she brings up this beautiful image. An inconvenient Christmas, I eat a cake. And the choruses on this album are fascinating, because when I first listened, I thought there are no choruses. I thought it's just verse, like little break verse. But there are choruses, but they're often just like a word. I think in this case, it's just cake. I think that's the chorus. Cake. I was going to make a joke about the band Cake, but I always get Cake and Train mixed up. Which one did Going the Distance? Is that Cake? I don't know. And then I get sick and throw up, and there's another memory that gets stuck. Gross. She's really into vomiting on this album. Mitski. Gross. Inside the walls of my skull, waiting for its turn to talk. So memories on this album are also something which take their own form. They become snow, they become frost, and here they become like vomit on the inside of your skull. Like you're like vomiting out your brain, out your mouth, but it actually goes through your skull, and the vomit particles get caked on to the walls of your skull, waiting to talk to you while you're by yourself. Okay, I don't have a David Cronenberg DVD to show you. They're all wrapped up. I think I own, what was it, Crash? Was that no, Existence. I have Existence somewhere in my collection here. And it may be a few years, but you can bet that it's there waiting still for me to be left in a room full of things that I've done. So she's just so haunted. She's so incapable. A whole cake, so please don't take this job from me. She needs this job. She needs to be distracted. These lyrics, I don't relate to them now because I haven't done anything that I like terribly regret in a long time, which is nice. I guess it's part of getting older. But I have done things I terribly regret in my life. I have been unable to sit alone in a room, and she's able to describe those things so well. It was like Lemon Bars maybe said that in the comments. And her voice just gets so strong and so restrained. And then there's like this church organ. This album is filled with organs, which I think are intentionally bringing up church and church-like feelings, because this album is very much about damnation, sort of like damnation on earth. Like this is very much hell on earth, right? This is just the hell of being left alone in your own room. Later we'll talk about her selling her soul. She's talking about angels, right? So there's like pedal steel and organs. That's really big here. Obviously pedal steel. Maybe it's because she lives in Nashville, and like in order to be an official like resident of Nashville, you have to be able to play pedal steel to at least an intermediate level, or else you aren't allowed to be a citizen of Nashville. Like you can be a citizen, but you can't like vote in local elections and stuff. The opening track, I'm going to thrust the album a little bit quicker, is Bug Like an Angel. Run around like a crazy little bug. Sweet acoustic guitar. I think there's some hiss on here. I'm always fascinated when you hear hiss in productions because it means they're trying to sound like that. The vocals are so clear and so gorgeous. God, don't you just love clear vocals? When a singer just sings so clearly, it's just great. And then it seems like this whole song is about being an alcoholic. Maybe some of those regrets come from being an alcoholic and having to throw up. There's a bug like an angel stuck to the bottom of my glass with a little bit left. This is awesome lyricism, right? Because I heard this and I immediately understood that she had a glass and there was a bug stuck to it and she was drinking alcohol and she thought, hey, that kind of looks like an angel. Weird, right? That's my Mitski impersonation, by the way. Is that how she talks? Was it uncanny? Did you think for a second you were watching Mitski? As I got older, I learned I'm a drinker. Sometimes a drink feels like family! Sorry. Sometimes drink feels like family. If you've heard the album, you understand why I did that. It's the verb tense. I'm a linguist, right? I learned I am a drinker. So I learned is in the past tense. I am a drinker. So it's not I was a drinker. It's that I am a drinker. Meaning she is actually cognitively aware that she is dependent on alcohol. She is admitting to being an alcoholic who needs help. Now, she does it in such a way where it's very gorgeous and the guitar and the whole thing. I hear this, and if I were her friend, if I were Mitski's Lindsay, I would say, hey, you don't have to suffer. It's okay to not drink. Let's get some help, you know? But the drink feels like family. That's why a lot of people become alcoholics, because there's a lack in their life and they don't have these connections. And sometimes that thing can actually exist as a way to help you feel the connection, which is why she says family. And then the chorus just goes crazy. And the chorus is just the word family. And this production is only like this on this song. Like, there's a lot of interesting production here, but this is the furthest out they go in terms of production. The second verse, like the bass and piano, is kind of a shuffle. When you break a promise, it breaks you back. Hey. People who know more about music than I do, can she really be the first person to say that? Like, that's like the easiest, that is like the lowest hanging fruit of just like taking an expression and then inverting it. It's so good. And it's so true. And it's part of the problem. When you're an addict, you are a liar, right? There's that old joke. How do you know an addict's lying? Their mouth is moving, and it's sad. It's a joke, but it's sad. You know, addicts don't want to be addicts. Addicts don't want to be bad people. Their addiction puts them in that place. And when you break promises, when you break people's trust, it breaks you back. Then a whole verse all about being bent over and throwing up and having it be like she's at the church and the wrath of the devil was given to him by God. So that's the other question, is when you say angel, anytime you talk about angel, you're also sort of kind of implying you're talking about Satan, because Satan was a fallen angel, right? If you sort of have like even a rudimentary sort of theology in your head, sort of Christian cast of characters, the word angel, at least for me, is just one step from Satan. So, you know, Satan was like, you know, made by God, right? So what's up? Hey, God, don't make Satan, you know? You're so great, God, don't make Satan. Like, wait, you like a bad guy, you know? Why did I say that like Ray Romano? You need a bad guy? I said on my first listen, these are the best Nick Cave lyrics I've heard in a long time. It is very similar. It's not gothy or like sort of imperial and cultish as Nick Cave is, but the ability to write about Christianity and Christian themes is just unbelievable here. There's an unresolved chord at the end, which, who's that guy? Adam Neely. Hopefully he'll describe this chord at the end. I don't get it. Like, I don't get what this is happening here. This is like such a beautiful chord. You know, when you're a painter, when you go to a museum, it's different, you know, because you know what goes into everything that someone is doing. So if you see a shadow or a color or some kind of perspective trick or some kind of thing, like, you understand it better. There's a degree of musicianship that happens sometimes in music where this ending chord, I don't know what it is. I don't know what she's doing or what they're doing, but it makes me want to understand music better on a technical level, to be able to understand what this chord is. As it is now, I'm just like, neat. A quick word, Sarah Mary Chadwick is a musician who I like very much, who makes very sad music about being an alcoholic. She's out of Australia, but she's New Zealand. She released an album. I don't know if I'm going to review it. I'm having a pretty busy, awesome week, and I've reviewed a lot of her stuff. But check out Sarah Mary Chadwick if you like people who sing about regret, but also throwing up and feeling like you're a piece of garbage with a New Zealand accent. Next song is Buffalo Replaced. Not my favorite track on the album. I mean, it's interesting because it's a real change in instrumentation. It's kind of an imperial opening, kind of this plodding guitar and bass, and these drums are in the back. Great lyrics. Mosquitoes can enjoy me, I can't go inside. Just awesome. God damn it, she's a good lyricist. You know how often I say that on this channel? Like, that's the thing, is that when you become a certain age, you think that there's no more good music anymore, right? Because everything was good when you were surprisingly 17 to 25. But goddamn, Mosquitoes can enjoy me. I can't go inside. Beautiful, perfect, simple. And it's how I've often felt, I'm outside and I'm getting hit by mosquitoes, but I'm just like, you know what? It's just too nice out here. Just go for it. If this is the bargain, this is the bargain. I'll accept it. And then I'm sucking up as much of the full moon. So like she becomes a mosquito. So she is actually sucking life and blood from nature. And then the mosquitoes, it's like a little circle of life. That's a good thing, yeah. Okay. The interverse, there's like a weird little keyboard stab. Like I don't think there's a chorus on this song. And at the end, there's this very restrained epic moment. So it's sort of epic, but it's also kind of restrained. Next song is called Heaven. This is where the pedal steel really starts to come in. Very country sounds. There's like a violin that plays the melody after the verse. There's like a point where there's like pedal steel and violin at the same time. And not strings. I don't mean like a quartet or whatever. It's just like an individual violin. Maybe a fiddle. I don't know. What the hell is the difference between a violin and a fiddle, right? Like the difference between like whiskey and scotch. I know there's a difference, but get out of here. Oh, okay. There's actually a fair chance I have some whiskey snobs who are getting mad at me. Feel free to tell me in the comments why the difference is very important. But still, pedal steel and the violin is just beautiful. And then these lyrics, the thing is, that whole vulnerability thing, I often talk about how part of what I don't like about Taylor Swift is that her private life is so public that it forces people to get into positions where they're sort of like connecting the dots, like who does what and who is this about. But this feels like it's very much about a real person. As I sip the rest of the coffee you left, a kiss left of you, this feels like a real moment of departure and love and care. And then the chorus is just the word heaven. It's not family, but it's just heaven. The bridge is more orchestra. At this point, I notice the bass is just going nutty. It's awesome. And then the third verse, the pedal steel is more pronounced. There's so much great production happening here. And then basically a chamber music outro. So what are you going to do? Then we get to the stamp, I Don't Like My Mind. Then the deal, just great sustain of her voice. Beautiful plodding sounds. At a certain point, like in the chorus or the second part, it feels almost like a Phil Spector wall of sound thing. And this is some of my favorite lyrics on the album because the traditional idea is you sell your soul to get something in return. And the thing you get in return is the love of your life, riches, fame, 75,000 subscribers. That's what you do. Like you sell your soul, right? And then you get something back. But what's great about this is all about wanting to sell your soul, and the prize is that you don't have a soul anymore. Like the consequence is the goal. The punishment is the reward. She doesn't want her soul. Her soul is the same thing that kept her up in the room. Her soul is a person who made everything so tough. It's such a beautiful idea. There's even a little country fiddle breakdown, which made me think of the devil from Futurama, but I don't think that's what it's about here. And then there's just sometimes there's just the production just goes nutty. They just get nutty. I can't explain it to you, they just get nutty. There's like a drum machine that just goes absolutely nutty. It just sounds like what's going on here, When Memories Snow, the whole thing feels like a musical. It's like a piano and a singing chorus with these lifting behind. And it's this whole beautiful image. When memories snow and cover up the driveway, I shovel all these memories, clear a path to drive to the store. Once again, she cannot live with memories. She cannot live with thought. She cannot live with regret. She needs to be working. She needs to be driving to the store. She needs to be distracted, right? And then here, beyond the fact that it sounds like this like really fun, super kooky. I'm talking about Mitski. What are you doing?
Leaving?
Oh, you're going out to brunch? Okay. I made her pancakes and she's going out for brunch. What can you do? Anyways, there's this really, now I forget what I was saying. It doesn't really matter. Distraction, trying not to think about death, memories, this war keeps on going on. There's this great discordant bit with this trumpet that's like out of tune and the orchestra is out of tune, but it's like just a little bit and it goes back and in. And I love this song. I love this variation right here in the middle of the album. And then My Love, Mine All Mine. It's just this full country song. It's totally gorgeous. Goat Who Just Left. That's her favorite song on the album. Pedal steel. And the funny thing is, my daughter is mostly a guitar player and she's learning bass and she's learning drums, and I'm a drummer, so she wanted me to like tell her how to play drums. She doesn't want to sit there and have me play for her. She doesn't want me to dad-splain how to drum, but also like I am a drummer, so I can tell her. So I'm like listening to this album with her, and I'm like, let's give this as an example. The problem is the drums are so low in the mix that it was really hard to do. So hey, it works for the production, but it doesn't work for a drum lesson. When you actually do pay attention, the drumming is great because it's very far behind the beat. It's very nice in that way. And I love the weird sense of this title, like the idea that the only thing that she owns is her love. And to get to a different 17th century French philosopher, I think, therefore I am, part of the idea behind that is there's very little that we actually can know, right? In the same way, there's very little we can actually own, right? There's like anything can be taken away, not just because everything is streaming, right? But everything can be taken away. But if you love somebody, much like a thought is something that you must have, right? Like that's the one thing that we can't doubt is that you're thinking, right? That's the meaning of I think, therefore I am. Like the one thing you can have that can't be taken away, even by the person who you love, even by death, even by anything, is love. It seems as though she implies that her lover is a woman, so I don't know. Is that a thing? Am I just misreading it? I mean, it doesn't matter. But anyways, the frost, more pedal steel and strings, little jaunty tune, winter again, like all these winter themes. It's pretty clear that she was not a LA singer, and then also the way she talks about where she's living, it was clear that she wasn't a New York singer. So there you go. The first time I listened, I was watching, I watch TV with the sound off often when I'm exercising and listening to these albums. I got way into the episode of Parks and Rec I was watching. I tuned out a little bit. So maybe the song is not that engaging, or maybe I just need to focus more. On future listens, I ended up really liking it, but it was just sort of part of the fabric of the album. Star is what my gym teacher used to call me. Hey, Star, get over here. Very low rumble to start. This melody and descends. These strings come in, almost like this drone, like all these drones happening, and the melody is just all over. If you really tried to trace the melodies that she's writing, you'd just be all over the place. And the organ just ends up taking over, and then these drums come in, and they're so far behind. And then there's this cacophony of harmony. And I get the sense that they were in the studio and should we layer the strings in or the drums in or the other instruments? And then Mitski's like, yes, we should mix them all in together. There's all these little insane-o moments in this album, and this is one of them. And it fades out with just, it's great. Really, the production on this album, it's so deceptively deep because it just gets nutty every once in a while, and that's it. I'm Your Man, guitar and low bass and the drums in the distance and these great lyrics. This is about regret and being a bad person. You're an angel and I'm a dog, or you're a dog and I'm your man. You believe in me like a god. I destroy you like I am. I'm sorry, I'm the one you love. That's that thing, right? That's the other side of the Taylor Swift relationship. Later, you believe in me like a god, I betray you like a man. So this whole image is just really interesting and very painful. And we see how she basically altered beasts her way through a whole bunch of things, where she's basically constantly transforming from a crazy little bug to an angel to a dog to a man, sort of going through all these things. And this is all matched with this insane choice of having these crickets and these dogs barking in the back. This is a song which I've only listened to a couple times because when I listened to it in my house yesterday, I woke up and I was feeding my baby and I was letting my wife sleep. And I was listening to this album, and it was very nice. It was a very nice moment. I'm sitting there, I'm feeding her yogurt with little bits of strawberries mixed in. Full-fat yogurt, no sugar, it's very good. Strawberries, yummy. Great thing to feed a baby. She's sitting there, she's smiling, I'm smiling. But this song had barks in it, and Toby, my dear dog, started barking. So I had to stop it, and that's just what happened. Final track is I Love Me After You. Sort of a percussion element with some reverb, almost Beach Boys-y. With the thumping bass drum, I don't know. There are elements of this which do remind me strongly of sort of Phil Spector-y, Brian Wilson-y production, but it's not like they're trying super hard. Or maybe I'm just thinking about that because Lindsay was the person who introduced me to Beach Boys. how mad can I be at somebody who introduced me to Beach Boys? Very nice, an amazing melody. Maybe her best singing range. Maybe this is her best shot at like showing all of her amazing range. But you know, again, she's just so good and so restrained. The lyrics are just gorgeous. Stride through the house naked. Don't even care the curtains are open. Let the darkness see me. Streets are mine. The night is mine. All my own. How I love me after you. King of all the land. I'm king of all the land. And I'm looking at my porch right now. And I used to do that when I was going through my divorce. I would sit on my porch and I would look out over my backyard and I would call myself the king of assholes. Je suis le roi des cons. That's what I used to say. I felt like I was Louis XIV of assholes. Like that was just how I felt. And I had this feeling, and I was in my bathrobe. I might have been naked. Who knows? You know? But I had that sort of feeling, and the freedom that you have. You know, the old cliche. You know, you can either be lonely or annoyed. The freedom that comes with being lonely is there. I'm the king of all the land, and of course, it's sort of a irony. That's the word I was looking for. It's kind of irony and doesn't quite work. And then these loud noises and there's like this simple guitar going between two chords and all this like fuzziness, and the voice is just tracing the melody, and then the drums are just bashing, and that's the end of the album. So I love it. I'm very happy about it. You can tell me in the comments which of her other albums should I listen to. Goat tells me Puberty 2 is her best album. Maybe I'll check that out. But I'm happy to have discovered Mitski, and I'm going to go build a time machine and go hang out with Skye and Lindsay. Until next time, there's the camera.